The question nobody is asking is Vinegar Syndrome fucking up in 2025? Midwit Media says yes. His Holiness, the Bishop of Bull Moose, says
wrong.
Look, I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't like. I like plenty of questionable shit myself.
Fornication and asphyxiation and choking, I love it against my better judgment.
If you don't care much for anything Vinegar Syndrome has released since last November, that's cool. It makes for a pretty short video on your part, but that's cool too. It's less opportunity to mispronounce words that you should have learned in high school. It's pronounced treacle, melusine especial. Did you not go to a public high school where they made you take Spanish? It's pronounced especial. Also, cinematograph. This is the most egregious mispronunciation for a blue tuber, by the way, since the cinematograph is a vital early invention in the history of cinema. Have you heard of the Lumiere brothers? How can you claim an expertise over a domain while meanwhile mispronouncing a fundamental landmark invention that made this entire passion possible? The reason why blue tubers exist is because the Lumiere brothers invented the cinematograph. Go Google that shit. Anyway, it's going to sound like I'm here to nut hug on Vinegar Syndrome. I'm not, okay? Fuck those guys in their asses while they're wearing glasses, okay? I'm not here to nut hug on Vinegar Syndrome. Justin La Liberty fucked my dad. I'm not here to nut hug on Vinegar Syndrome. I am here to play devil's advocate and shit on people for mispronouncing words. It's one thing to say that you're not really into what Vinegar Syndrome is offering. Our tastes are subjective. It's another thing to claim that Vinegar Syndrome is off to a rough start in 2025. That's a different claim altogether, because that is a claim that can either be supported or refuted with evidence. Some of that evidence might be available to us, even though we don't work for Vinegar Syndrome and we can't see any of their sales data or analytics. We can still glean from what we see on the internet, as well as what their own site is reporting out for sales and sellouts. So the real metric for the roughness of Vinegar Syndrome's calendar year to date is how well their shit is selling, since that tells you whether or not their customers dig their releases. So sales-wise, off the top, we got 4,000 copies of the limited edition of Iced selling out, boom, within a month of release, or just over a month of release. That's not including any sales of the standard edition copies, which sold out entirely as well, but we don't know what the print run of that was. So we know that they sold 4,000 slipped copies. We know that they sold all of their standard edition copies, non-slip copies as well, but we don't know how many that was. I don't know. Let's say they sold 5,000 copies of Iced. That's being generous. It might be closer to 8,000, but they sold many thousand copies of Iced. Motherfuckers out there did like it, okay? And they bought a fuck ton of them. As of this recording, there are no copies of Iced in stock at vinegarsyndrome.com, and I think that says something. They also damn near sold out of Street Trash limited edition. They've sold about 90% at the time I'm recording this video. So that's about 300 copies left of the LE out of 3,000 made. So they've sold 90% of that. Again, that was another, I believe, January release. That's pretty good for a VSP as well. Those don't exactly fly off the shelves. I think they've sold out of one or two of those, the LE previously, but Street Trash is on track to sell out in its entirety, maybe before the end of Q1. But again, another pretty successful release, I would say, year to date so far. Joy of Sex, limited edition, has sold about 50% of their 3,000 units, and that's another January release. So that's 50% of all of the LEs being produced in just about a month. Female Perversions limited edition has sold about 50% of their 3,000 units as well. So that's about another 3,000 units between two cinematograph titles. Mansion of Madness limited edition has sold 47% of their 3,000 units. So that's 4,500 units between those three titles alone, on top of the 5 to 8K units of Iced and 2,700 copies of the limited edition of Street Trash. So, not too bad for 2 months' work. We're barely into March as I'm recording this. So all of that sales has happened between January 1 and February 28th because they didn't sell any of this shit in December. It wasn't released then. I'm only looking at releases that have come out in 2025 and how those sales have been. I'm going to break this fucking bottle and stab somebody with it. Something that's a little bit harder to track is online hype, right? Without any tools to measure web traffic or anything like that, being an outsider, it's very hard to track hype. I'm sure many of you guys out there are members of Facebook groups dedicated to like 4K, Blu-ray, physical media. Generally, there's also a couple of pretty decent sized Facebook groups dedicated strictly to Vinegar Syndrome. And I am a member, as I'm sure many of you guys are, and I see the posts in those groups. There's a lot of hype around some of these new titles. I've seen a lot of motherfuckers bought Virtuosity. I think motherfuckers bought Virtuosity just to talk shit about it, honestly, because every other post is like, "Hey, got Virtuosity," and then the next post is like, "That movie's a steamy pile of shit." I haven't seen Virtuosity since the '90s. Spoiler: I'm gonna check it out at some point. I'm gonna get a copy of it on sale or something at some point and check it out. But I haven't seen that movie in decades, literal decades. I didn't even know who the fuck Russell Crowe was when I saw that movie, because Gladiator hadn't come out yet, and Gladiator is kind of when Russell Crowe got on my radar, along with pretty much the world. But motherfucker was making movies before Gladiator. L.A. Confidential, Russell Crowe's in that bitch too. Anyway, Deranged 4K, Virtuosity 4K. That's 2 4Ks they've released so far this year, along with The Possession of Joel Delaney on 4K. A lot of motherfuckers talking about that. A lot of motherfuckers are looking forward to that. Again, it's another 4K. So that's just in the first 2 months, they've released at least those 3 4Ks. They've released The Carpenter with Wings Hauser. Maybe not going to sell 10,000 copies of that, but look, people dig that kind of shit. And there is a cult following for Wings Hauser. That's kind of bread and butter for Vinegar Syndrome, okay? White Cannibal Queen, they released a Jess Franco film. Again, another guy who maybe doesn't get a lot of mainstream cred, but it's bread and butter for the Vinegar Syndrome crowd. So you can't say they're having a rough year because you're not a Jess Franco fan. Vinegar Syndrome people are Jess Franco fans. So just because you don't dig it doesn't mean that there aren't thousands of motherfuckers who are like ready to click add to cart on a Jess Franco shit. And, I can't say I'm the biggest Jess Franco fan either. So I don't necessarily get it as a person who's in it, but I can say that I see a lot of motherfuckers who are. Devil Fetus / Her Vengeance, that little 2-pack, that little double feature looks fucking lit. I am a fan of really nasty Hong Kong cinema shit. I like it. Brimstone and Treacle is a 4K of a film starring Sting with a score by The Police, which some may consider significant. Okay, it's another 4K. It's pronounced Treacle. That's the fourth 4K just to come to the top of my mind that Vinegar Syndrome has brought out in 2025 to date. So they've already brought some heat with the 4Ks, and Vinegar Syndrome 4Ks are chef's kiss, right? They don't fuck around on them 4Ks. Even if you don't love the movie, they're doing good work. The score is by The Police, dog, with Sting. That's a big deal. I'm not a huge Police fan at all. I'm not a huge Sting fan. I don't love The Police, but you got to admit they were a huge fucking band. They were a huge fucking band. And Sting went on to a tremendous solo career. So the fact that they're doing the score to an early 80s film that Sting stars in, it's not insignificant. It's not a blip on the radar. Just because you've never heard of it doesn't make it unimportant, because you've heard of the fucking Police. You've heard Roxanne 1,000 fucking times in your life, at least, maybe 10,000, because they play that shit on the radio all the fucking time to this day. Let's talk about some other important work that Vinegar Syndrome does, which is bringing things to disc or to high def or to 4K that have never before been released in those formats. So they're doing the Lord's work by bringing some shit that maybe doesn't see the light of day otherwise, if not for Vinegar Syndrome. In 2025, Vinegar Syndrome has put out Joy of Sex. That has never been released before on disc, domestically in the United States at least. I didn't check Germany and France and shit like that, Italy. You know, I did my research on the US domestically. You're welcome for that, but I can't check every fucking country to see if Japan got a fucking region A Blu-ray of this shit in 2010. I can't do all of that too. But look, Joy of Sex, domestically, US, never been released on disc, unless you count a mid-80s laser disc, which I don't, because it proves my point if I don't. Also, fucking laser disc doesn't count, I'm afraid. It hasn't been released, Joy of Sex hasn't been released at all in any platform, any home video platform since 1991. It got a VHS release and hasn't been released since 1991. You want to do the math on how many years that's been? It's been 34 fucking years. 34 fucking years, a title like Joy of Sex, which again, it's not risky business. It's not Fast Times at Ridgemont High level famous. And yet, Vinegar Syndrome is bringing it back 35, almost 35 years later, languishing on a 1991 VHS. So I got to applaud them for that. Devil Fetus doesn't appear to have been released on disc in the United States. Same with Her Vengeance, although both appear to have been released in the UK by 88 Films or are going to be released. I'm not sure. I know 88 has the UK rights, might have put them out, might be in preparation to put them out. Regardless, if you're a US domestic motherfucker like myself, this is your opportunity. First opportunity to get your hands on Devil Fetus and Her Vengeance. And I got to say, just because that nasty shit doesn't appeal to some motherfuckers, some of us do like that wild, nasty shit. Some of us do want to watch a Chinese lady get it on with some green reptile-looking motherfucker with long white hair looking nasty as shit. Kind of already happened in Nosferatu, right? Like, I mean, he's not green reptilian, but he's like a zombie-looking motherfucker. Maybe Edgar stole that shit from Devil Fetus, because that came out decades earlier. Belly of an Architect got a Laserdisc release, but nothing else in the United States until now. Belly of an Architect didn't get a DVD, no nothing. Just off the top of my dome, coming out, that's 4 movies that Vinegar Syndrome's put out new to disc. There's also some shit that's new to high def. The Carpenter was released to DVD in 2011. What do you want to bet that motherfucker's out of print? That's a $50 DVD at least. Who wants to spend $50 on a DVD? Fuck that shit. I'd rather get an STD than a DVD. Brimstone and Treacle was released to DVD in 2003. Some of y'all motherfuckers weren't even alive in 2003. Them fucking towers was still smoking in 2003, the last time Brimstone and Treacle got a release in the United States. So this 4K is a big, big upgrade. It's a very welcome upgrade. And Last of the Red Hot Lovers, that's another cinematograph release that I think is available for pre-order now in March, was released to DVD also in 2003, but nothing since then. So, I mean, I got to say, Vinegar Syndrome's already bringing out several titles. I mean, I would say maybe most of the titles that they have released in 2025 so far has been shit that hasn't been released to disc or hasn't been released since fucking 2003 on some grimy ass fucking DVD. I don't even know if they had fucking anamorphic widescreen back in 2003. Do you know? They probably did. But like those early DVD releases, you could be rolling dice circa 2000, 2001. You could be rolling the dice that you're getting some non-anamorphic shit. You're going to have fucking bars here and bars here on your 16:9 widescreen television trying to watch some DVD from 2003. Vinegar Syndrome is absolutely doing the Lord's work by bringing these things out in a modern format with beautiful restorations and transfers. You know what Vinegar Syndrome does. You know the kind of work they do. Even if you don't like the movie, they're going to do good work on it. So look, I'm not out here doing backflips over Vinegar Syndrome's release slate this year either. I mean, I'm definitely got Joy of Sex on order and a few others. I'm going to pick up Virtuosity at some point. You know those VSUs. You got to keep your eye on those and get them during a sale. Fine. Save some dough. Be patient and save some money by getting some shit on a sale. But also keep your eye on some shit like Street Trashed. If you want the LE, you better jump on that motherfucker. If you missed Iced, sorry, sucks to be you, son. Get on the Carpenter. I mean, there's a few titles that may not make it to a sale anyway. I'm going to cop those, and I might camp on Virtuosity until it hits a sale and I can get it for $30 instead of 44. But look, just because I'm a savvy shopper doesn't mean I'm going to shit on Vinegar Syndrome slate 2025 to date. And I will say, criticisms about the artwork, that's another subjective valuation. Something that you love artwork wise, I might not think is shit. And something that I love, you might think looks like a blurry dick after you got your eyes dilated. I think, the line work on this art is actually quite elegant. It's actually elegant. The line work is very nice. I've been a big fan of like pen and ink artwork for a long time. It's my favorite artwork to produce. It's some of my favorite artwork to look at. And so something like this, while simple, it's a simple composition, is really very elegant nonetheless. And then the brimstone and treacle, I don't know, it's not the theatrical poster, but it beats the shit out of the fucking DVD art from 2003. Also thematically relevant to the film that has such religious motifs. So I think it's perfectly relevant. Both of these pieces of artwork, I'd be happy to add to the collection. I'll be happy to have those on my shelf. The artwork, I think, is fine. I mean, it definitely beats the shit out of Kino. I'll bitch more about this in a future video, but it beats the shit out of Kino doing like Control C, Control V on some fucking art asset that was photographed in 1993 for Kindergarten Cop, that all they're doing is obtaining a high-res image of the art asset from the studio and then copy pasting that into some fucking template and then printing it to high quality PDF or whatever and sending it out to the printers. Like, that's not fucking art. That's copy paste. My fucking 5-year-old can do that shit. You set my 5-year-old up with a fucking template in Canva and she can Control C, Alt Tab, Control V that bitch into some template in Canva. So get the fuck out of here. It's much better than the shit that I hate to shit on Scream Factory too much, but they do this shit too, where it's just a copy paste of the cover art from the fucking poster. So it's not a better slipcover, and it's not better artwork over there at Kino. They're not doing better slipcover art than something like Vinegar Syndrome or the partner labels are doing with this custom artwork. And you don't want to talk about somebody having a shit year, but you're not gonna talk about Arrow fucking up The Cell or fucking up Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Two titles that people are fucking hard in the pants over. Both of them got royally fucked this year. Crickets on bitching about Arrow fucking up 2025. You want to talk about having a rough year? How about fucking up two of your hottest releases of the year to date? And it's fucking 2 months in. We're 2 months in, and you fucked up Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Cell. All right, but keep sucking Kino's dick for putting out Uncle Buck, which has only had 37 Blu-ray releases over the past decade. But hey, it's new to 4K, right? Plus that fucking cover art. Ooh, yeah.